Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Domescoped here, and welcome to the second video in a series I'm doing called Halo in Depth. The first video was just called Movement, and I went over a few movement mechanics. And this second video is going to be called Aiming, so I'm just going to go over some aiming techniques, tricks, and so forth, strategies, along with taking a look at some of the aiming settings, which I think is a really important thing to do, especially when you're playing Halo. So before we get into it, if you guys want to take a second and subscribe if you haven't already done that, give me a subscription, that would be awesome. And I'm going to get into the details of this. Basically, I'll hop into a custom game here. We'll just put it on free-for-all. Map really doesn't matter. So yeah, this is the second video of a pretty in-depth look at Halo. I'm going to be doing, it's mainly about Halo in general, the Halo mechanics, and then I also am going to have kind of a focus on Warzone. I do love the Warzone the best about Halo 5. It's like my favorite part about Halo 5. So I've been playing a lot of that. I do like Arena and stuff, but Warzone's been a big blast for me. So it's going to have a little bit of a concentration on Warzone strategy as well. And then maybe later on I'll get into some Arena and I will give you some more Arena strategies. But it'll be mostly geared towards Warzone. This one's just kind of a general video about aiming. So without further ado, if you haven't seen the first video, go ahead and click on a link I'll put up right now for the first video, which is called Movement, and then you can get caught up. Of course, most people already understand the movement mechanics. You got Spartan Charge and all that new stuff. So let's get into it. Aiming is obviously right stick is going to be your aiming one, and then a little couple differences with aiming as opposed to say like Call of Duty, which is actually one of the main things. One of the main games that I usually do play. I've just been getting into Halo lately. It's not so much focused on aiming down sight as Call of Duty. With Call of Duty, you seem to have to aim with steady aim and then aim at the same time and then start shooting, and it's just really fast-paced. And this is still just as it's still just as fast-paced, but there's just not as a emphasis on aim down sight. So, and actually, it's not even called aim down sight in Halo. It's called Smart Link. But basically, it's aim down sight. So obviously, one thing to mention before we get into too many tips and tricks here is you want to make sure you're set up right. So hit start, hit controller. I've gone over this in the first movement video, but I use Helljumper. I think it's really helpful. And then Smart Link in Helljumper is your left trigger. So it's going to be just like Call of Duty. If you're a Call of Duty player, it's very similar. Although the one tip, like I said, is it's not as reliant on the aim down sight or Smart Link. So what you can do is basically just remember not to use it all the time like you would Call of Duty. You don't want to be just using it all the time, because it is good for longer range shots. That being said, you usually don't need it when you're close up. All right, so I got my look sensitivity at 6, and that's kind of on the high range. If you're new at Halo, I would start around 3, maybe work your way up. Look acceleration is basically when your right joystick is held to the edge, how fast does it start moving? It'll move a little faster or whatever. Mine's at 5, which is the most, and that's just because I don't like to be able to get snuck up behind. So if I'm putting my joystick all the way to the edge, I want to be able to fling around real quick and hopefully get a melee on the guy and at least weaken him before he kills me or whatever. That's one thing you might want to adjust if you haven't thought about it. Now, what I wanted to do is get into some more of these detailed settings here that I really, I wasn't even, didn't even know they existed until a little bit ago. But here they are, and basically down here right at the bottom, you have some settings. The first one's called Inner Dead Zone, and this one, I'll read what it says and I'll try to explain it a little bit. Set R input required to exit the dead zone prevents quote unquote drift. The higher the setting, the greater the input needed from center. Default is 12. Okay, so what this means, and I haven't quite figured out exactly, I figured out what not to do, but I haven't figured out exactly fine-tune exactly what I want. But essentially what this means is the higher percentage you have of this, the more you'll have to take your joystick away from the center to get it to move away, kind of like that. Like if there's a dead zone, meaning the dead zone is an area where when you're moving your joystick, it won't necessarily move on the screen. It needs, so in the middle of your joystick, there's just, imagine like a little circle, and basically there's a certain amount of minuscule little movements that you can do that it won't even register, and that's called the dead zone. So the inner dead zone, depending on your play style, if you're jerking around a lot and you notice that your reticule is just jerking off of heads all of a sudden, I would move this higher up, and that will make your dead zone for the center a little higher, and basically so you won't be like just jerking all around. And then the other one is basically the outer dead zone, and what that means, I'll read it for you. The higher the setting, the less input needed based on proximity to the edge. So what that means, let's see here. So this says it's input required to reach maximum look speed prevents slow turn. So the higher that this setting, the less close to the edge you need to get your joystick before it starts going to maximum turn. So if you another thing is, so if you're starting to turn too quickly or whatever, and you notice you just barely jerk, and next thing you know you're turning all the way around, you probably want to move this. You want to move this a little lower, I believe. Yeah, because the dead zone. Okay, so it's one of these things where you kind of got to basically play around with these percentages, go back into the game, see how it feels, and then adjust accordingly. I've been working with 13 and around 4 or 5 for this. The default is 10, and I think the key is to definitely mess around with these and see what you like. After you mess around with those, you can definitely feel a difference, because I know I was having issues not being able to zoom in on getting on people's heads, because I like a faster sensitivity, but when I'm aiming, I don't want to accidentally jerk off their head by just barely touching it. So that's where that inner dead zone comes in. And then as far as not being able to turn as fast as you want, that's where that outer dead zone comes in. So definitely mess around with those settings, and that will really help you as soon as you find which settings work best for you. It'll really help you a lot, I guarantee it. So definitely check those out. All right, let's get on to some aiming strategies. I got a little acronym that I use myself, kind of to train myself to aim a little better. It's just ABC, and it stands for always be correcting. And what that means is essentially, if you're missing someone, don't continue to shoot and continue to miss. I mean, it seems almost too obvious and almost like it doesn't need to be said. But if you say this lamp here is a guy, and you're shooting over here, so ABC, always be correcting. So if he's moving to the left, try to follow him to the left, follow him to the right, wherever he's going. Basically, it means don't give up. A lot of people will just start getting hit, and they'll kind of give up. So always be correcting is just keep on moving until you get to the spot you need to. And a little hint about Halo 5 is the spot that you need to is going to be the headshot. So in Halo 5, the headshot's probably worth like 3 times the damage of any other shot. So if you're not hitting on someone's head, then you need to be correcting. You need to always be correcting. Even if you're hitting the body or the hand, you should be moving up to the head. You need to get that headshot. I can't emphasize this enough. Any good player, any good Halo player will tell you the same. Aim for that head. So always be correcting. ABC is a little acronym to help you with your aiming skills. Also, a couple things you can do is try to do like small circles like this. See how fast it takes to spin around. I mean, there's so much stuff you can do. It's one of the main things you can do. Just jump into some multiplayer and start playing. One thing I like to do, if you want to do some like exercises, is just pick a fixed point on the map. So like say that light right there. And it's just, you're over here, so how fast can I get on that light? Can I get on it fast? Is it slow or whatever? And then that being said, when you're aiming at a fixed object like that, there's no auto aim. So if you can get good at aiming at random objects that you pick really fast on the board just to practice, then when that auto aim comes into play, it's going to be even easier. So that's another thing that can help people when it comes to aiming. And then the other thing that I would like to add quick is strafe aiming is a little bit more viable in this game than it is with like Call of Duty, I would say. For one, because you have more health and you don't just instantly die. So when you start getting in a gun battle with someone, you're going to want to start strafing. Sometimes, you know, going one direction is okay, but a lot of times you're going to want to change directions. You know, maybe throw a jump in there. If you're hell jumper, it's a lot easier because you can jump and still aim. That's why I would definitely recommend, you know, hell jumper or bumper jumper for your settings. So that being said, strafe aiming is a little bit, so, you know, jerk over there with the with your right stick, and then when you get close, you can use your strafing to just do some fine tuning. And when you're fine tuning your strafing, you're also dodging bullets as well. So it's kind of a multiple purpose thing. You know, not only are you trying to fix your aim a little bit, but you're moving side to side, ideally dodging bullets, unless he's, you know, better at aiming than you, in which case, you know, you're screwed. So that's pretty much the general gist of the aiming video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up and a like. I'm probably going to do a little bit more of an advanced aiming video in the future, but the basics I've covered. Definitely mess around with those settings. It's going to help you dramatically if you figure out exactly what settings work for you. And then, like I said, if you want to figure out some, you know, little tricks to, you know, just practice, you know, by aiming at some objects like this, that's always helpful. Alright, so I really appreciate you guys watching. 2 minutes left. We are running a promo till January 15th. If you guys subscribe, we can give you a couple free game rentals from Redbox. But those expire soon, so try to take advantage of that. And I really appreciate you guys watching. Have a great day, and we'll look